Ms. Nickerson.
No, Mr. Radford.
Welcome to the Viking Science Academy. Today we're going to talk about viruses. It's been a rough flu season this winter, yes?
It is going
Kids are
around.
really sick.
Yeah.
So the first thing we want to talk about is, are viruses alive or not? I don't know. I kind of think they are alive because they do infect, they cause disease, they kind of go through like a life cycle.
They're able to stay on surfaces for long times.
Yeah. But scientists kind of say they're not alive because they don't have some of the properties of living things. They don't grow. They can't maintain homeostasis in their internal environment, and they don't process or metabolize any energy. Yeah. And so
they need a host to continue to spread to.
Kind of like middle alive.
Yeah.
Viruses, you guys have all had a virus before if you've ever had the flu, and or maybe gotten a virus from another organism, but they have a lot of different modes of transportation and infection and everything else, and they're worldwide. What was the first virus that we discovered?
It looks like it was
the tobacco mosaic virus.
Mosaic virus.
Actually, almost 80 years ago, all the tobacco use were riveling up and dying, and they couldn't figure out. And tobacco was a huge crop, so they actually put a lot of money into the science to figure out what was happening.
So this is the first one that they knew about.
Exactly. There was many viruses before that.
Yeah.
But this is the one they first figured out. Oh, there is such thing as a virus, and so when they were able to combat that and save the tobacco crops,
which was a cash crop,
huge cash crop.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a picture of the structure. Can you explain it?
Well, I think it looks a lot like a spaceship, and it kind of acts like a spaceship too.
It does.
At the top there, it's got a head, and it's surrounded by a capsid, so it's made up of protein, so it's really tough. It can withstand heat, it can withstand cold, sometimes without oxygen. It can survive on its own for quite a while. And inside of that and connected through that tail there is its DNA. Yep. So that's one of the reasons I think, well, it's alive. It has DNA.
That's true.
I mean, right? But anyways, it's going to have DNA or RNA, but it's never going to have both. And whether it has DNA or RNA is really going to determine what type of virus it is and its life cycle. And then we see those long kind of tail fibers, and they really do kind of act like a landing legs for this virus structure. So here's some examples of some DNA or RNA viruses. And when you look through them, you can maybe notice that the RNA viruses seem a little bit more serious than the DNA viruses.
Yeah, an organism with the ones that have DNA, they can still kind of go along for a while.
We can beat it. Our body can fight back.
Yep.
RNA, not so much. So we got kind of going through the differences between those. Yep. Now, viruses come in a couple different shapes. Helical, like the one that we saw a moment ago, where it's going to have that wound spiral a core. Then we have polyhedral, which has many sides, and they attack a little bit differently. And then finally, polyhedral capsid, which is the most powerful. This is when you combine the two parts. It makes these kind of alien-looking structures. On the right there is an actual electron magnetoscope image of a virus. So it's not like we're kind of modeling this. This is exactly what it looks like. So how does a virus get inside of us?
A lot of different ways. It's just on the surface. We pick it up orally, any of our external orifices, sharing drinks, any
kissing,
kind.
Coughing, any body fluid, and that can be an airborne fluid. Also, it has the potential to carry viruses. And once they get inside of us, they start attacking our cells, and they can pick any cells, and they're going to land, attach, and then kind of use almost like a hypodermic needle to press through the cell membrane, and then inject their DNA or RNA into the cell. So here you see an image of that occurring, and then also you see an actual picture of a cell being attacked by multiple viruses. Yeah, they're just like little attackers. So here you can see the viruses coming on the cell, land, they're going to push it through, and then what happens is those viruses rebuild themselves inside by taking advantage of the cell. Cells like to make copies. That's what cells do. They go through cell reproduction. But what they don't realize is they copy the DNA or RNA of the virus as well, and then the viruses assemble inside and explode out and kill the cell. So
this one's using E. coli, which is a bacterial infection, and it uses the advantage of bacteria and how quickly bacteria can replicate. And then that's why that virus can spread so quickly.
So viruses and bacteria work together a lot, So this is called the lytic cycle, what we just talked about, where we have absorption, entry, replication, assembly, and then it releases out.
Yep.
And it happens, like you said, really fast. You can feel fine in the morning. In the afternoon, you're like, I gotta go home. I gotta call my mom.
Fever hits.
I'm going to bed.
Yep. That fever hit, it says your body trying to counterbalance
with the heat. They're trying to burn it out.
Yep.
Okay. But then there's also another cycle called the lysogenic cycle. And this is typically the RNA viruses most of the time. And it goes through the same process. It's going to land, inject, go in with the cell's DNA, get copied, but it doesn't assemble.
Looks like it's a slower process.
Yeah, copies, and it copies into more cells and more cells and more cells. So all these cells don't even realize it, but part of their DNA is virus DNA. And then it has a trigger, and it comes out of dormancy, and all of these viruses are released. And viruses that are in the lysogenic cycle usually have two names, a name for while they're dormant, and then a name when they become active. And that's why we have HIV and AIDS. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's just two different cycles on it. And you don't even know if you have it because it's just sitting in your DNA.
And until it explodes on that later part, you really won't show symptoms.
My class always asks, well, what makes it explode? Well, like environmental factors can, lifestyle can, but we're
time.
Time, exactly. We're still not really sure like what that trigger is that makes it go into its,
full-blown
projective years. And then there's viruses that mutate, and these are the ones that really scare me.
Yes.
So a virus can mutate a lot of different ways, and that just like your DNA mutates, well, viral DNA can mutate, and maybe it can pick up something and makes it more powerful. It can become airborne. So what if AIDS is airborne?
That would not be good.
Yeah. What if it's the type of virus that could become airborne? So if you coughed, just like a regular cold, we could transfer AIDS. Now, right now, you have to have really pretty strong body fluid interaction. So.
And the CDC is really trying to keep these mutating viruses, trying to keep up with them, and they have like vaults where they keep these things and try to tuck them away. And
well, we see that every year with the Center for Disease Control with flu. Every year we see the new flu vaccine. So this is their prediction of what they think the mutations are going to be for the following year with the flu. They release the vaccine. Sometimes they nail it and hardly anybody gets sick. Sometimes they do not nail it, and that vaccine is not very effective.
Yeah.
So outbreaks occur, and they've occurred always in time. This is just the last, about 50 years or so. We can see the number of deaths and all the different types of outbreaks that occur. And viral outbreaks depend upon a couple things. Depends on how closely a population lives together. Depends upon how clean their water supply is.
Hygiene.
Yeah. And then it kind of depends on what kind of medical protocol they have in place for handling outbreaks. If we see an interactive, I don't think this map is going to play interactive, but that's okay.
Going back to that side,
I can't go back.
the West Nile virus, it started kind of on our East Coast, more localized, and then gradually it has spread over our whole country. I mean, you can see on Highway 97, there's a sign, stop the West Nile virus, and it's the mosquito is the vector that helps it to go.
I think it took 4 years to go from East Coast to West Coast.
Yeah.
So now we have West Nile in Klamath Falls.
Yep.
And they kind of post the data in this paper sometimes. This many people infected, this many animals infected. Swine flu was big a few years ago, and it started over in Asia, and some viruses are transferred from animals to humans. So when we say the bird flu, the swine flu, that was a virus that started in another animal and then mutated and was able to affect people. And so when people are in close proximity living with animals, that's usually where they first get it, and that occurred in Asia. That spread across, and we had a ton of deaths from the swine flu a few years back. This map kind of shows the population of the world affected by AIDS. And so you can see carefully, it is a world map, but the different countries have been exploded or shrank depending upon their population that is infected by HIV AIDS. And so I talk about in my class, there's two main areas that is a major concern. Africa and India have a tremendous amount of their population infected with HIV AIDS. And
they have a huge population densities, especially in India. And if people don't have the education and how things get transmitted, that's a big problem. So.
Yeah. So as those cases turn from HIV into AIDS, which is already happening, there's just going to be a massive death in these countries from this. So there's a lot of stuff going on to kind of counteract that. So talking about HIV, which is kind of one that's on everybody's mind,
Mm-hmm.
you have about a 1 in 1,000 chance of catching HIV during unprotected sex. That's way better than the lottery. It's way better than car accidents.
That is pretty high.
It's pretty good odds.
Yeah.
And a person they can have HIV/AIDS, and you just would not know. The activity we did in class, you look around and we're going to give somebody AIDS in class.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell by how they look, or
Nope.
who they are, or what they do. Anybody can have it.
Yep.
So we've got about 3 million people die each year from AIDS, HIV. There are some new developments in HIV/AIDS we'll talk about in class, but it's still a pretty main concern.
It is, yeah.
So what are the different ways that HIV or a lot of the different viruses can be spread?
There's always a misconception. Oh my gosh, I kissed someone, I'm gonna get AIDS, or when that's not always the case.
Your mouth has very little DNA.
Yes, yeah.
And your cells.
Obviously, sexual contact, contaminating needles,
the blood in it.
The blood, yeah. Blood transfusions, not as much.
It's screened pretty well,
It
yeah.
is, yeah. Breastfeeding, so that's from mom to the baby, and then also baby to mom during pregnancy. So.
It's important to know how things are spread. But we do have some hope. We've developed some vaccines for quite a few different viruses. How do we make a vaccine?
We take that virus, and it's a weakened part of it, and we kind of genetically change it, basically.
Instead of breeding it to be stronger, like we would in dogs or horses, we breed it to be weaker. We used to breed them in like chicken embryos, and then we take that really weak one, inject it into us. You guys have all gotten vaccines before, and your body's like, I don't feel so good for a couple days because it's fighting it, but then it's like, I've learned how to fight the chicken pox. So when you're exposed to it again, you can beat it. Your body learns from that.
So it's a small dose of that disease. Or
vaccines are important because there's a lot of things out there that can have a big impact, but we should also recognize that there are many countries, including the United States, that keep the full-bred viruses on hand. And biological warfare is a terrible thing, but it's kind of a reality. And so that's one thing to kind of think about when we talk about like eradicating a virus or not eradicating virus, and kind of how things work with that. Recently, this is a slide I added just a couple years ago. We are seeing some huge correlations between virus and cancer. What's this about?
Cancer is just uncontrolled cells that replicate, and so they think that the lysogenic virus is kind of connected to that stage. So
you guys have seen that advertisement, so I one more kind of thing.
Yeah, the HPV.
The HPV virus to get vaccinated. We're going to see more and more of these kind of vaccinations for different types of cancer, which is really exciting. But the key is you have to be vaccinated before you're exposed.
Yes.
So those of you who are in high school, this is actually a really good time to be talking about this or with your parents and make some decisions on whether you're going to be vaccinated or not. And how amazing would it be if we could cure all cancers with a vaccine?
That would be awesome.
That'd be awesome. It'd be amazing. So, all right, we're going to do a couple things with viruses in class. We'll take a closer look at AIDS, HIV, and one of you guys is going to contract our virus in class and
we'll
spread
see
it around.
how it spreads.
See how it goes. All right, thanks for joining us on the Viking Science Academy.